Welcome back to Timo's Dinky Detailing. Today I'm doing a Dinky 158 Riley. This one is a basket case. This is perhaps the worst shaped Dinky toy I have ever seen. The child got older, I guess, and decided he was going to turn this into maybe a hot rod, I was thinking. Take off the front fenders and make it look like it's... Anyway, everything went south on it. He chewed off the fenders. They're all twisted and broken off. And you can't even try to make this into a hot rod because of the way the casting works for holding the wheels. So I decided I'm going to try and restore it. So like usual, we start out and I'm going into the milling machine, and I've got that wooden block to try and hold the thing straight. It never does work. It tends to tilt the casting. I have to hold it in place. But anyway, I can at least do my center drilling, and then I can put in my big drill and then drill out for the tap. And then I've got my special spring-loaded tap alignment tool, and this is all because it's in the mill. The hole gets drilled in the same place as the tap goes in, and the spring-loaded tap guide keeps going in as the tap goes in. Now this tap is my spiral tap that extracts all of the swarf as it goes in, which is working out pretty good for me. I always use a lot of tapping oil because these castings are made of a material that's very chewy. Okay, so there you got the drill, and it popped that base off like nothing. Anyway, you don't want your drill or your tap to break in this chewy material, so I always put a lot of coolant in there. And since I've been doing that, I don't have any trouble. I've had a couple of drill bits break in there, but not since I started using the tapping compound religiously. So there we go, I got those holes tapped and put some 440 button head cap screws in there, and that'll protect the holes from getting filled with paint and other crap while I'm doing the rest of the work. So these axles come out, and it's easy to file these ends because you don't have to file up against the hub. So I'm showing it quickly, then moving on to a little bit faster method of making these videos so you're not watching for quite so long, and hopefully that will bring more viewers. So this axle's obviously bent, and I just use a hammer up against the vise, and the material is very soft, so it's easy to hammer straight. And here I'm making a little dimple in the lathe, and that's make it easier to make a new mushroom on the end. So there we go, the dimple, and that's really helping a lot with making these axles have a new mushroom. And after doing that, I go on to the grinder with a buffing wheel and buff it up and polish it so that it's shiny. So I did that with both axles, obviously, and there they are. Now we go to the base. I've taken that off. It's rusty, and it's going to need to have that rust stripped, so I use, as usual, Evapor Rust, super safe rust remover. It chelates the rust off of the metal, does it in a slow process, so I'm going to leave this overnight. They don't pay me anything, but if they're watching, I'd be happy to accept some kind of praise for that. Anyway, you can see this. This is a catastrophe. When I first looked at it, I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Turn it into some open-wheeled hot rod or something. But now, after getting a 3D printer, I thought, why don't I just design up new fenders? So here I designed these in Tinkercad. And in my previous life, I was a draftsman and I was quite good. And now I'm getting back into it. So here I've 3D printed the fenders I designed in Tinkercad. So this is something I'm happy to get back into because I really enjoyed my days in doing drafting, and I haven't done it in a long time. And now I'm back doing it again, and it's just fun. And of course with these 3D printers it's even more fun because you can design something and then you can print the thing out. It's like it's almost like printing on an ordinary flat paper printer. So there's the fender. I got it looking pretty close to the original. That's the Riley I did before, and then putting on here just to see how it's going to look, but obviously that's going to need some work. So now after all that work, I'm going to take the paint off of it. So I go outside, some boiling water and caustic soda, and that kind of exploded on me a little bit, but it took the paint off pretty good, and now you can see the damage even better. That's really a mess. So I'm going to take the damaged part off, and I go to the bandsaw and just saw the damn thing off. I'm going to replace that part anyway, so I'm going to the part where the fender ends, and there's a smooth or a straight part that goes to the body side. So there you can see how these fit on, and I put them in the small clamp, and now I just glue them in place. So I'm using a accelerator, and actually this accelerator I've had for many years, and the bottle is getting empty. But anyway, I was able to do enough with the remaining bottle, and then I could use the other method, which is to put the super glue on there. And this is the gel super glue. It fills the gap, and then you put the baking soda on it. So I got these glued on now, and then I'm going to have to fill in the joint and make it look smooth. So I'm going to use JB Weld, and my JB Weld I'm going to have to buy a new one because the dark one is getting a little bit thick. So anyway, JB Weld is brilliant stuff. It's very, very strong as an adhesive, and it also is very nice to work with. It comes to a nice putty type consistency. You have a lot of time to work with it. You have to let it dry overnight, so you're able to use it as a modeling material as well. So in the 3D printer I also printed an interior, and I figured out that you got to put more angles on the part, and so this one you can see it's all in different angles, but it winds up having fewer supports to take off, and so the part actually looks a lot better when you put it on these weird twisted angles. So that goes into the ultraviolet light, and it rotates in there, and that hardens the rest of the material. And then I take a steering wheel that I made before, and that fits in there as well. So I'm going to have to paint that before I put them together, but let's see if it fits first of all. This was first try, and the darn thing fits perfectly, so I'm pretty happy with my drafting skills, my measuring skills, and everything else. So there's the first primer onto the model with the new plastic fenders, the 3D printed fenders. And while I'm in the spray booth, I'll put some primer onto the seats. And a little satin black hardware spray paint onto the steering wheel. So now with the primer on there, I can see where there's flaws in it. There's not much in the body in the rest of the casting. It's just pretty much where I had to join up the printed part with the cast body. So I did a lot of filing and sanding and getting it to look just right. And it's by no means perfect, but it's good enough that somebody looking at the model, not knowing that I had done those repairs, would not see where the joint is. They would not notice that it's been repaired. It wouldn't even occur to them because it at least looks smooth enough for that. So now I'm mixing up the paint. I'm using up whatever's left of my that bottle of yellow and mixing it with white. And I didn't have enough yellow paint left, so I put in yellow from a fresh bottle, which you don't see here, but it is there. And this is going with the original color that the actual toy was. In this case, I'm wanting to bring it very close to an original model because it's such a massive restoration to get those fenders in place. So I might as well do it so that it looks like the original toy looked. My spray booth looks crappy. It's made from cardboard. So after I do this, I'm going to upgrade the spray booth so that it's going to look prettier and it's going to be more effective. So now, before putting the lacquer coating, I'm going to put some of the detailing, in this case the number plates. So I'm putting a white background, and I'm doing this and I'm realizing I don't know if I need a white background. So on the back I didn't put a white background. I just went with my clear decal material, and the lettering will show through as slightly yellow, but it doesn't really look yellow. You don't notice it. So on the front I've got the white there, so I guess tiny bit looks better, but it doesn't really, you don't really notice it because the yellow is so light. On the back it looks good. So here I'm painting the front indicators, and I tried with a brush, but using the ball end of the nail painting brushes, it just works better. So here I've done the details, and now I'm spraying the lacquer over top. So this is the color I'm going to be using for the interior. This was before they did any interior seats for these toys. So I'm mixing up the paint a little slightly orangish red, and I mixed it with the self-leveling thinner. And now I'm also going in very carefully because it's easy to overpaint these things trying to get in all those little corners. So I went slowly in to get the corners first before I painted the overall seats. So all the corners were filled in when I went in with detail into the little parts. So that helped and made it a more even paint color. So it came out looking pretty good, like a later Dinky Toys interior would have looked. Now I paint the black under these seats because anything that's close to the wheel wells, you'll be able to see the plastic. So I paint them black so that they're not obvious when you look into the wheel wells, and you can't help but look into the wheel wells. So I put the steering wheel in, and then a little black paint to paint the stick shift, the ball on the stick shift. So now the wheels on this toy were originally green, and I didn't have the right green, so I had to mix up the green with a bit of yellow, the green that I had. Again, I always use the leveling thinner. That's the special thinner that when you spray paint it doesn't dry so fast. It dries slowly, and in the process the paint is able to level out, and you wind up with a beautiful shiny surface even if your paint job wasn't perfect. Of course, my paint jobs are always perfect. You can see I've modified the spray booth a bit, and now I have a filter there in the back. So that was in the middle of doing this thing, but I'm going to fix it even better. I want to have the filter above the spray area. So now I've got my shaft with the dimple on the dimple on the end, and then I go in and hammer it into a mushroom. You can see it comes out pretty nice. That's one, and here's the other. I like these ones where the axle pops right out without going through any holes, because it's way easier to do these mushrooms. So once again, I go with my O-rings that are the right size, and I noticed other restorers are using these O-rings now because they are exactly the right size, and they're inexpensive, and they go on very, very easily because they're supposed to be stretchy. So now the final detailing in the Molotov and chrome pens, and I've taken some of the ink out and I'm painting it on with a detailing brush. And I do always the chrome after I've done the lacquer coating, the shiny coating, because if you put the shiny coating over the chrome, it makes the chrome look dull. So you have to do the chrome last. So while we're doing this, you should click on the little the thumb that is just below the image to like this video, and then also share it. And if you haven't already, you should subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any of these cool videos. So you can see I'm using all different methods of holding this car in a position so that I can support my hands and make sure that I can paint smoothly. I don't have the most steady hands when I'm painting these things, so I always look for some way to get extra support. I should probably refrain from painting these little details on the model if I wanted to make it look like an original Dinky toy, and I admire the people who do. I just don't have the restraint to make the thing look exactly like the original Dinky toy, and that's maybe my personal flaw. But anyway, I'd like to add these, even this one, little embellishments that I probably could have left out. So I'm using my technique. I've cut paper to fit as windows, and then I've got this material from, you can get it from various different products that you buy, and it comes with plastic. And I make a paper pattern first, and then I bend it all into shape and put it in. And I found out that if I cut it just right, I can hold that in. I don't have to glue it in or anything. I put my seats in, and that holds the plastic in place as windows. And it helps when I have the passenger window and the driver window open, so I can reach in there and push the windshield up against the ceiling. So there we got all our parts. I got the wheels in there and the base. Better put it the right way around. And there I have my screws with the heads painted, and I like the effect. Instead of a bare aluminum looking rivet, you got a painted screw that kind of looks like a rivet. And you can always take this thing apart again if you want to make some change. So just to remind you where we started, this is what it looked like. Pretty serious problem. Let's see what it looks like now. Well, that looks pretty much like an original toy, with the addition of a few details that weren't there when the toy was sold originally, including the interior windows and the painting of some of the hardware on the car. Anyway, this was a tough build. I think it came out fantastic. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of Timo's Dinky Detailing. If you want to see more of these, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, be seeing you.